Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Speak English with Luna, the place where we don't just learn words, we learn how to live in them. I'm so happy you are here today because we are doing something very, very special. Have you ever felt like your brain is moving in slow motion when you try to speak English? Like the words are there, but they are stuck in traffic.
That is such a common feeling, Luna. It is like having a fast car, but being stuck in a parking lot.
Exactly. And today, we're going to fix that. The title of today's episode is Train Your Mind to Think Fast and Speak Smart. But I have a little warning for everyone listening. Today is a journey. We're starting right now at a nice, easy, comfortable pace. If you understand me now, you're doing great. But as we go, the mountain is going to get steeper. We are going to move from this easy English into some very advanced, high-level conversation.
It is a bit of a challenge, isn't it? A linguistic workout.
It really is. So here is my challenge to you, the listener. Stay with us until the very last minute. Even if it gets hard, even if the words feel new or fast, do not turn it off. If you can make it to the end, you are training your brain to handle the real world. Leo, are you ready to help them push their limits today?
I am ready. It is important to remember that growth happens right at the edge of your comfort zone. If you stay where it is easy, you stay where you are. To think fast, you have to practice following a faster stream of thought.
I love that. The edge of your comfort zone. So listeners, take a deep breath. Adjust your headphones. We're starting easy, but we're going high. Leo is here to share his wisdom on how to stop translating in your head and start feeling the language. Are you ready to stay until the end? I hope so. Let's get our minds moving. Leo, when you first started studying how people communicate, did you notice a big difference between people who study and people who think in a language?
Absolutely, Luna. And it all starts with how we treat the silence between the words.
Before we move forward and the language gets a little more complex, I want to stop for a second and talk directly to you, the person listening right now. Maybe you're on the bus or doing the dishes, or perhaps you're driving to work. I want you to know, truly, that this is a completely safe space. There is no judgment here, and there are no tests. Leo, why do you think it is so hard for us to feel safe when we're learning a second language?
It's because our identity is so closely tied to how we speak, Luna. When we can't express ourselves perfectly, we often feel small or even a bit unintelligent, even though we are actually very smart in our native tongue. But I want to tell the listeners something vital. A mistake is not a failure. It is simply a signal. It is a signal that your brain is trying to build a new connection. If you're making mistakes, it means you're actually doing the heavy lifting.
I love that. A signal, not a failure. I really want our listeners to give themselves permission to be imperfect today. If you don't understand every single word Leo or I say in the next 10 minutes, that is perfectly okay. In fact, that's part of the process of thinking fast. You have to get used to not knowing everything.
Precisely. Think of this podcast as your personal laboratory. You are an explorer here. You don't need to be perfect to explore a new land. You just need to be curious. So let go of that heavy pressure to be correct immediately. Just listen, let the rhythm of our voices wash over you, and trust that your mind is catching more than you think.
We are right here with you. We've both been through that frustration of feeling stuck, but today we're going to move past it together. Ready to keep going? We are moving into the deep water now, and I am so excited. Leo, our topic today is training the mind to think fast. Most students I talk to say the same thing. Luna, I understand everything you say, but when it's my turn to speak, my brain freezes. Why does that happen? Why is there such a massive gap between understanding and producing speech?
It is a fascinating cognitive phenomenon, Luna. You see, when we're listening, we're in a receptive state. Our brain is decoding signals. But when we speak, we're in a productive state. We have to build the house while we're living in it. The main culprit for that freeze is what I call the internal translator. Most people try to build a sentence in their native language first and then find the English equivalent. That is a very slow, heavy process for your CPU, your brain, to handle.
So it's like trying to run two very heavy programs on an old computer at the same time. It just crashes. How do we stop that translation? How do we start thinking directly in English?
You have to start with chunking. Instead of learning individual words, you must learn groups of words that naturally live together. Think of them as prefabricated pieces of a building. When you have these chunks ready, your brain doesn't have to work so hard to find the grammar. It just grabs the whole block. But to truly think fast and speak smart, we have to go even deeper into the concept of cognitive resilience.
Cognitive resilience. That sounds very high level. Can you break that down for us? Because that sounds like exactly what a smart speaker needs.
Precisely. Resilience in language is the ability to navigate a conversation even when you don't have the perfect word. A smart speaker isn't someone who knows every word in the dictionary. It's someone who knows how to use the words they do have to explain complex ideas. This requires a shift in mindset, from being a student who wants to be correct to being a communicator who wants to be understood. When you stop obsessing over the perfect adjective, your brain suddenly has more energy to focus on the flow of the conversation.
That is such a powerful shift. I notice that as we move into more advanced English, the vocabulary becomes much more nuanced. It's not just happy anymore, it's ecstatic, jubilant, or content. How does a learner start to incorporate these C1 level nuances without feeling overwhelmed?
It's about immersion and observation. You have to start paying attention to the texture of the language. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I was working with a diplomat who was brilliant but felt childish in English. He was stuck using B1 vocabulary for C1 ideas. We practiced something called synonym mapping. Instead of just learning a new word like meticulous, we would look at the subtle differences between careful, thorough, and meticulous. Careful is about avoiding mistakes. Thorough is about doing everything. But meticulous, that implies a level of artistry and extreme attention to detail. Once he understood the flavor of the word, he didn't have to think about using it. He felt it.
I love that. I remember feeling that way when I was learning my second language. I felt like I was wearing a suit that was 2 sizes too small. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't be me. I think that is the biggest challenge for our listeners. They want their English personality to match their real personality.
That is a profound point, Luna. To speak smart is to reclaim your personality in another language, and that requires a certain level of intellectual curiosity. You have to be willing to play with the language. When you encounter a phrase like the elephant in the room or to play devil's advocate, don't just memorize the definition. Ask yourself, why do we say it this way? When you understand the logic or the metaphor behind the idiom, it becomes part of your internal architecture. You aren't just fast at speaking, you're astute.
Astute. Oh, I love that word. It sounds so much more professional and sharp than just smart. We are really climbing the mountain now, guys. If you're still here listening to Leo's beautiful explanations, you're doing it. You're training your brain to follow a complex, high-level discussion. Leo, before we move to our word tour, what is one quick-fire tip for someone who feels their brain is lagging during a real-time conversation?
Embrace the strategic pause. See what I just did? Most people fear silence, so they fill it with or which makes them feel less confident. If you pause deliberately, it gives your brain a second to catch up, and it actually makes you sound more authoritative and thoughtful to the listener. It turns a freeze into a moment of reflection.
That is a game changer. It's not a gap, it's a choice. I feel like my brain is already moving faster just listening to you. We've talked about chunking, cognitive resilience, the texture of words, and the power of the strategic pause. This is high-level stuff, and I am so proud of everyone who is still with us.
They should be proud. Navigating this level of discourse requires a lot of mental energy, but this is where the transformation happens. This is where you stop being a learner and start being a speaker.
Okay, we have reached my favorite part of the show, the word tour. This is where we take the high-level vocabulary we just used and break it down so you can start using it in your own life today. Leo, what is our first word for the list?
Our first term is cognitive load. This refers to the total amount of mental effort being used in the working memory. Think of it as the weight on your brain. For example, translating word for word creates such a heavy cognitive load that it's hard to focus on the actual conversation.
That is so useful. My next one is nuance. These are the tiny, subtle differences in meaning, feeling, or sound. It's what makes a B2 speaker become a C1 speaker. For example, a smart communicator understands the nuance between being direct and being rude.
Precisely. Our third word is meticulous. This means showing great attention to detail, being very careful and precise. For example, she was meticulous in her preparation for the presentation, making sure every slide was perfect.
And then there's astute, a word that makes anyone sound instantly smarter. It describes someone who can accurately assess situations or people. For example, he made an astute observation about the project that saved us a lot of time.
Let's add strategic. This means relating to a long-term plan or aim. As we discussed, a strategic pause is a powerful tool to regain your thoughts during a fast-paced meeting.
Lastly, let's use the verb to reclaim. This means to take back something that was lost or taken away. Example, by practicing these techniques, you can reclaim your true personality in English. What a powerful list! Now it is time for our community challenge. This is the part where we turn the microphone over to you. We've talked a lot today about that internal translator and that frustrating feeling of your brain freezing up when you want to look smart. So here is my question for the week. Can you describe a specific moment where you felt you finally reclaimed your personality while speaking English?
That's a beautiful question, Luna. I am truly interested in hearing these stories. Understanding that click moment, when the language stops being a barrier and starts being a tool, is so inspiring for the rest of the community. It proves that thinking fast isn't a superpower, it's a practiced skill.
Exactly. Tell us your story. Was it during a high-stakes meeting, a casual chat with a friend, or maybe even while traveling? Share your reclaim moment with us on our social media pages or in the comments section using the hashtag SmartEnglishLuna. We might even feature your story in a future episode. Oh, well, we have reached the very end of our journey today. But before we sign off, I have one last question for you, the person listening to my voice right now. Did you make it? Are you still here with us? If you are, I want you to take a second and be incredibly proud of yourself. We started this episode with simple, easy English, and we climbed all the way up to complex, high-level C1 discussions about cognitive load and resilience. You stayed, you focused, and you didn't turn it off when it got hard.
It is truly an impressive feat. By simply staying until the final minute, you have already started the work of training your brain to handle sophisticated input. You are building those neural pathways right now, even if it feels like hard work.
You really are. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this linguistic workout, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and share this episode with one friend who needs to stop translating and start speaking. I'm Luna, he's Leo, and this has been Speak English with Luna. Until next time, keep thinking fast and speaking smart. Goodbye.